F. Blast them. Get back to the ship!
Certainly has courage.
All right, how are you guys doing tonight? One of you is really excited to be here. All right, let's try that again. How are you guys doing tonight? All right, you do. All right, so tonight we're so glad that you're here. Let me just say that first. Welcome to 155. Yeah, my name's Tim. Everyone say hi, Tim. That's right. My name's Tim, and tonight we are wrapping up our series we've been doing called For Honor. And we've been talking about the battles for our honor that matter. Does everyone have a program, a bulletin tonight? I want you to hold it up in the air. Get you moving a little bit. All right. I see some people, man, everyone should have a bulletin. Come on, hold it up. Hold it up. Let's see it. Come on, no one's too cool for this. Come on. I mean, I'm the coolest person in this room, and I'm holding it up. All right. Some of you are like, you thought. All right, so tonight, first week, this series For Honor, we've been talking about the armor in God that we find in Ephesians chapter 6. And Paul writes this letter to the Ephesian church, and it's really cool. He's actually under house arrest. Maybe that's not super cool. But he's chained to this Roman guard. And so when he sees the armor, it makes him think, I bet I could write something about this. And so he does. And so he decides to exemplify it by saying, this is what we need to fight the spiritual battles in our lives. And so week one, I talked about how to have victory, we have to live as though we are victors, right? I mean, Jesus is the way to win, right? Okay, let's try that again. I mean, we're here because of Jesus. Is Jesus the way to win? That was much better. All right, week two, Chandler gave us a soldier's perspective on what it means to gear up for battle. Because without it, we're defenseless, right? And so it's important to have our breastplate of righteousness, to have our belt of truth, and the gospel of peace. And then last week, Brandon told us what it means to have the shield of faith. Shields are awesome, right? I mean, they help you not die. That's cool, right? Yeah? I mean, I don't want to die, so having a shield in battle is a good thing. And tonight we're going to wrap this thing up by talking about the offensive attack. All right? So we're going to go ahead and just dive right in. So point number one on your outline, go ahead and get your pen ready. Let's hear you click it. Yeah, I like that. Some people hate that noise. I find it therapeutic. I don't know why. But anyway, I'm weird. All right, so point number one, the helmet of salvation protects our mind. The helmet of salvation protects our mind. Maybe you're wondering, what does that have to do with anything? So all the pieces of armor, Paul did a great job of figuring out how to match these traits that we should have that help us in our faith to the armor. Now, helmets are important, right? Anyone here play football? Anyone here wish they played football? Anybody? Okay. Got a little more response on that one. So helmets are important, right? Anyone ever had a head injury, like a concussion before? That is awful. That's like the worst, okay? You get a concussion, you feel dizzy, you throw up, you don't feel good. I mean, it's just bad, okay? It's just not good. Anyone ever have like a scratch on your forehead? That could be like your cat went like, "Rear," and like scratched your head, and you bleed for days, right? That joker just won't stop. So head wounds are pretty serious, right? So here's the thing. You can get your body in shape. You can get abs of steel like me. But you can't do a whole lot for your neck and your head, right? I mean, they're just kind of defenseless. So having a helmet is super important. It protects our brain, which is a pretty important thing if you know anything about biology. So tonight, let's take a look at Ephesians 6. It says, we're going to look just real quick, put on salvation as your helmet. So our minds are important, but let's take a look at Romans 12:2. See, Paul realized something as he was writing this letter that Jesus himself talked about. Because in the Old Testament, what was the rule? You had to follow how many commandments? There were 10 of them, right? But there were laws for days. I mean, there was a law about how you handled your hair. There was laws about what you could and couldn't eat. I mean, you name it, there was a rule for it. And so Jesus is like, hey, let me tell you something. It's not about that. And this is what Paul talks about. We'll come back to that. So you can follow along on your outline or on the screen. It says, do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the, I want you to underline, renewing of your mind. So what does that mean? See, Jesus knew that even if people didn't mess up, like if they didn't go out and lie and cheat and steal, which, I mean, people are going to do that, he knew that there was something deeper at the heart of it than just the action that took place, right? It starts with our mind. Because when you accept Jesus into your heart, you become, you go to bed that night and you wake up super Christian the next morning like Spider-Man, right? That happens, right? You woke up and you've got abs of steel like me. You've got the gun show. You're like, I'm ready. Anybody? No, that's not what happened. It's a process, right? It's not a one-time event. It's an ongoing experience. And so what Paul is getting at here is that our minds are important. See, he knew a principle that we would later coin. What you put in will... Rebecca knows, all right? Let's try that again. What you put in will come... There we go. That's better. Maybe I should have added that extra word for you. So what goes into your noggin will eventually come out again, right? So now I don't remember the first time I dropped a cuss word, but I remember the first time I got in trouble for it, all right? If you listen to pop radio now, they bleep some of the words, but I wasn't listening to pop radio. This was like the legit song, and I'm not going to tell you what it was because it's really bad, okay? But I remember this song was like, dun, 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 bleep, 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 bleep. I mean, it was just like, whoa, okay, getting a little heavy here. So around my friends, it wasn't a big deal, right? We walk around, we're like, man, what's up, bleep, bleep, bleep. But when my parents heard it, okay, this song was catchy. It had a good beat. I mean, like, I'm bobbing my head like, all right. But I traded that good beat for a good beating, if you know what I'm saying, okay? I dropped that word from my parents, and they were like, oh, boy, you did not. And, I mean, it was just bad, okay? I mean, I was old, all right, at that time. Like, I was in high school, middle high school, I think. Anyway, my parents were not happy. But when I was listening to that song on repeat, I knew every word, and I probably could still, unfortunately, recite most of the words of that song because I heard it so much. And that's the same that's true with us. I mean, what you put in is what you will get out. If you listen to bad music, you will eventually slip. If you watch an inappropriate movie, it has all kinds of action and violence. Hopefully you don't go around beating people up. But, I mean, you see it enough, and it begins to become second nature. And so what I want us to think about, and we talked about this at the end of the IDK series, is what do you have in your life, music, movies, media, that maybe it's just not that important. So I want you to write this question on your outline. When you find yourself falling into a pattern of sin, whether it's lying, stealing, you can insert whatever sin here. I want you to write this question down and ask it, what triggers that behavior? What triggers that behavior? If it's stress, what do I have to do to not do that? If it's lying, do I need to hang around people who are truthful? If it's bad language, what is it I'm watching, or who am I hearing that's saying those words? Does that make sense? Nod to show signs of life. Okay? All right. So we have to be careful about what we put into us, because eventually, one way or another, it's going to come out. And that leads us to point number 2. The sword of the Spirit allows me to hear God's voice and know who He is. The sword of the Spirit allows me to hear God's voice and know who He is. Ephesians 6:17 says this. We're just going to look at it real quick. And take the sword of the Spirit, which is the Word of God. Now, right here, you probably noticed when I walked out that I had this bad boy. Oops. That was a Tim move right there, courtesy of Tim. I'm clumsy, okay? So, right, what's this? It is. It's a sword, right? Now, it's not sharp, okay? Anyone in here own a sword? Own it. If you own a sword, admit it. Thank you. Thank you. I'm not alone in my nerddom, okay? All right, I bought this at Dragon Con this year, and I think swords are pretty cool. But here's the thing about swords. See, swords were important back in warfare, right? I mean, back in the day that Paul writes this, the Roman soldier had all kinds of armor, and he might even have like a wooden spear. He might have a dagger or, rocks. He might have rocks or a bow and arrow, right? But the sword was one of the most versatile pieces of equipment a soldier could have. Because you could use it to hack and slash, okay, like this. I can't really do it one-handed, and I don't want to fling it in the crowd. That'd be bad. You could do like the thrust, okay? You can like stab somebody, all right? But here's the thing. You could also use it to protect yourself, right? Now, I can't do that. In a sword fight, I would die, okay? But swords were an important piece of equipment. They were forged in fire and refined to the point where they were so sharp and so strong that they wouldn't just break when they made contact with another weapon. So swords were important. In fact, I like history. In Japanese culture, you know what their swords were called that a samurai would use? A katana, that's right. It was kind of a curved blade. But here's what's so interesting. Now, I'm sorry, ladies, this doesn't apply to you. Boys back then, okay, when a boy was born, their father had a sword in the room that would signify the sword he would carry one day as a samurai. I know, what a great, like a birth present. Here's, son, I know you were just born, but here's your sword. And that's sweet. So they would have a sword that they would one day carry into battle, but here's the thing. When they would one day die, whether on the battlefield or of natural causes, their sword would be buried with them. Why, you ask? Good question. It was because they believed that in the afterlife, they would need to take the sword to defend their Lord, the person they were protecting, from demons. So why am I telling you this? Because swords play an important role throughout history. We know that they were used to fight wars. We know that they were used to protect people. But swords are awesome, right? They're pretty cool. I mean, I love swords. But here's the thing. Any good swordsman would tell you, if you've ever watched Lord of the Rings, if you've watched like 300, were those guys like okay with their sword? No, they were like legit, right? I mean, they're like doing things I can't even dream of. Like, I start to try to do that, and I like hit myself in the head, okay? Like, it's bad. Let me just be honest for a moment. When I bought this sword, I practiced swinging it a lot. And Morgan caught me a couple times. I was like battle crying. It was really cool. But my point is this, okay? I'm not good at swordsmanship. But a master swordsman could tell you that there were two reasons you would get adept at your craft. And here's the first one is this: for honor. The name of our series. You were fighting to defend your cause. And you were going to do everything in your power for your honor and to fight the battle for the reason, whatever reason that was. And the second reason, my reason, is this: to not die. Right? You want to live to fight another day? Learn how to use this bad boy. You don't want to die on the battlefield? Well, guess what? Actually pick the thing up. It's a good strategy, right? Yeah, actually know what you're doing. So in a sword fight, I would die. But hopefully, so the whole point of this sword, and I'm going to attempt to sheath it with one hand. I don't know if this is going to work. Yeah, you know what? Here we go. 1 second. Okay, that's good. All right. So the whole purpose of swords and why Paul explains that we have the sword of the Spirit is because any good swordsman would tell you that you have to know how to handle it. The Bible is our sword. It is the most important piece of equipment that we have in the armor. All the armor is meaningless without the sword. Without it, you can only play defense. Imagine with me for a moment a football team, okay? Anyone here like football? Woo, all right. Here's the thing. Imagine a football team. They have the best defense in the country. They're intercepting passes. They're recovering fumbles. I mean, they are sacking the quarterback. They're making all these turnovers. But imagine when they snap the ball when they're on offense, the quarterback grabs it and he just takes a knee. Every time. Are they going to win that game? No, they'll never score, right? I mean, that would be a very boring game of football, no matter how great the other team's offense was. They would never score. So without the sword, the rest of the armor is meaningless. And as we begin to learn how to handle the sword, the Bible, we begin to find who God is. Because the Bible is our source of communication with God, right? Have you ever heard God's audible voice? Anybody? No, I haven't either, okay? This is how God communicates with us, or at least one way. The Bible is more than just a book of wise sayings and knowledge and history and all those things. It's living and it's breathing. It has stood the test of time for thousands of years, and it's never changed because whose word is it? It's God's. And so if we claim to be a follower of Christ, and we're going to pick up our sword in the spiritual battle, we have to know how to handle ourselves. We have to be able to defend ourselves and go on the offensive even when things get a little crazy. And the best way to know who God is through his word. And that leads us into point number 3. I want you to write this down. Boom, boom, boom. Prayer allows me to know the commander's battle plan. I want you to write that down. Prayer allows me to know the commander's battle plan. See, hopefully you know how to use your sword well enough. Because here's the thing. If you don't know how to use your sword, it doesn't matter if you know what the commander's battle plan is. In fact, I want to show you guys a video. I actually momentarily forgot about it, and I want to share this beautiful swordsmanship with you. Hopefully you can one day aspire to have the swordsmanship that these guys have. And I want you to know that that could one day be you in a biblical sense. I'm sorry. I was looking for clips because I was like, I want to show something epic, and I found that and was like, I was rolling, guys. It's, oh, man. That's the kind of stuff I aspire to do in my free time, is to get a bunch of friends together and just Nerf sword it. And I love it. That's just me. But anyway, I'm sorry, I got to recover. We have to know how to handle ourselves. And one of the best ways that we can be effective on the battlefield is to know the commander's battle plan. See, let's take a look at what it says in Ephesians 6:18. It says, "And pray in the Spirit on all occasions with all kinds of prayers and requests. With this in mind, be alert and always keep on praying for all the Lord's people." See, prayer is more than just us telling God, hey, I need help with this or I need help with that. See, it starts out as that, but prayer becomes so much more. It becomes an opportunity for us as we read the Bible. Hey, God, I don't get this passage. Can you help me understand? Or, hey, God, I have a friend who's going through a really hard time. Could you help me to serve them? I mean, the possibilities are endless. And in preparation for this message, I was looking up, anybody interested in like war and history? Anybody? Any buffs in the room? Okay. So I was looking up like times where battles just went wrong. Like times when soldiers didn't follow their commander's orders and things went bad. And I really wasn't pleased with what I found. Like I didn't find anything that was just like absolutely shocking. So I flipped it around. I looked for instances where battles were won against overwhelming odds because of a strategy. Now, if you've seen the movie 300, that's an example. I mean, they are epic, right? I mean, they are killing it. But one of the top strategies that I saw, now granted this was like a secular site, was in the Bible. They said that in the book of Judges, you guys know the story of Gideon? Okay, maybe yes, no, maybe so. Gideon's story is pretty interesting. He gathers 22,000 men to fight the Midianites. Okay, that's a lot of people for an army, right? He gets them all together and God's like, Gideon, I'm sorry, but that's too many. Too many. Who says that? So he's like, God, is this really you? Like, can you prove to me that it's you? And he does. And so he kicks out all these troops until he gets down to 10,000. He's like, okay, God, we've got our army. We're ready to go. And God says, nope, that's too many. He's like, are you kidding me, God? Like, really? I need soldiers to fight a battle. So God's like, nope. So Gideon sends, eventually, we whittle down to 300. And he's battling an army of thousands, okay? Now, obviously, we know reading these stories that God's going to take care of it in the end, right? But can you imagine being in Gideon's shoes? You're fighting for your people, and you're like, we've got 22,000 men. We're going to take this. We're going to win. And God's like, no. You're like, what? You're kidding me. So God's plan, what ends up happening is awesome, okay? They surround this group. They're kind of down in a valley, and they're up on top. And Gideon's men have horns ready, and they have all these torches, and it's ingenious. They light the torches, and they start blowing on the trumpets and just going absolutely berserk. The soldiers in the camp down below are like, what's happening? What's going on? And in the chaos and confusion, they all kill each other. You're like, dude, what's up? They never even have to draw a sword. Like, the Israelites were like, oh, well, I guess that's done. We can go home now, you know? I mean, but that's awesome, right? But see, it was all because of the strategy. They could have waged open war, and they would have lost thousands, and maybe they would have won. They very well probably would have lost. But strategy is everything. In Sun Tzu's Art of War, I'm paraphrasing here, he says, the victors of war go into battle ready to win. Warriors who are defeated go first to battle and then seek to win. We have to have a strategy in place, because as we begin to look and to try to find, what is my purpose? What am I supposed to do here on earth? God, what am I meant to do? How do I fight these spiritual battles? Without prayer, you won't find the answer. I mean, I can tell you from experience, and I'm sure the other adults in this room could testify to this, and maybe you found this from your own experience, that when you try to be the commander of your life, when you try to fight the battles on your own, you lose, right? It doesn't matter how smart you are, it doesn't matter how talented you are, it doesn't matter what you're great at. No matter what you try to do, you will ultimately in the end fail, right? Miserably. I've done it more times than I'd like to admit, but here's the problem. When we are not handling our swords properly, when we don't have the proper battle stance, here I'm about to blow your minds, when you don't have this battle stance right here, you miss out on God's battle strategy. And so tonight, what I want us to know leading into this fourth point is this. I want you to get ready to write this down. Point number 4 is if I don't pick up the sword, I can never win. If I don't pick up the sword, I'll never win the battle. Because like I said earlier, without the sword, all the armor is useless. You can try to live by your own righteousness. You can try to live by your own truth. You can try to proclaim peace wherever you go. You can try to have faith in whatever it is you believe in, and you can try to save yourself. But here is the ultimate truth. Without the sword of the Spirit and without the prayer, the strategy, the battle plans, you can't do it on your own. You'll be eventually playing defense and waiting for the moment when the final blow will be struck. So tonight, what I want you to know, and the band can head back this way, is that we have an obligation as followers of God to learn how to handle the sword. Now, I do want to say this. Yeah, I know we come up here every week and we talk about how important it is and, read 10 minutes and pray 10 minutes. And it sounds like something we just have to check off our list. But I can honestly tell you, this is Tim the person, not just Tim the student pastor, that when I don't read and pray in the morning, my day is 100% different. You know what I'm talking about? How I handle each day's problems, how I face anything that happens that day is a complete 180. See, it's more than just, oh, well, today I read that passage in Matthew, or, hey, I finally finished the book of Leviticus. That's hard, by the way, if you've never read it. Here's the thing. It's more than just a book. It's more than just talking and hoping we hear back from a voice that we might not ever hear audibly. It's about the commitment. It's about the change to your life that you can have, but you have to decide to pick up the sword. So tonight, what I want to challenge you to do as we wrap up this series, are you willing to battle for your honor? If you are tonight, I don't want you to worry about what the person next to you is doing. If tonight you need to lay it on the line so that you can fight this battle for your life. Because here's the thing, guys. At the end, you know who wins? Who wins? Someone want to take a crack at it? God. That's right. That's right. The church answer works here. God. That's right. He wins. He wins no matter what we do, no matter what happens in the world and all the craziness that happens, God wins. But we so often don't pick the winning side. We don't decide to pick up the sword, and we decide to try to live by our own strategy, and we fail. But what I want you to know tonight is that God wants you to succeed, and He wants you to have victory, but it's all up to you. If you want to be on the winning side, then tonight what I want you to do, look on your connection card. There are some next steps you can take. The first one is I will put on the helmet of salvation by choosing to follow Christ. Maybe it's the first time. It's the best decision you'll ever make. So if that's you, check that box. If you want to follow God's battle plan for your life, do it. Don't hesitate. Mark that box, and maybe I will pick up the sword of the Spirit and go on the offense. What I want you to know tonight is that we are here for you. Us adults, we're here for you. The students here, we're here for each other. So if you need accountability, let's make it happen. We will fight this battle together, but it's your choice whether you decide to enter the fray. So this is what I want you to do tonight. Okay? All up to you. If you want to fight this battle, if you want to fight for the victory, then I want you to pray. If you know that you need to step up your game, if you need to read more, if you need to reevaluate your relationship with Jesus and pray and pick up the sword, then tonight I want you to pray. It can be in your seat. It can be here at the altar. But don't wait another moment. Satan wants to mess you up, but I want you to know tonight that when you put on the armor of God and you pick up the sword, you can kick him in the teeth because he's a chump. okay? We want you to succeed. We want you to have victory, but it's your choice. So after I pray, come down to the altar, pray in your seat as they play the song, but don't leave tonight without really considering what it means to choose victory. Let's pray. God, I thank you for tonight, and I thank you for everyone in this room, and I hope that we would all really begin to consider picking up the sword. You have gone out of your way time and time again to forgive us and to make a path for us to put on the armor, to pick up the sword and enter the fight. And I know this, and that's why I ask that you would help me and everyone else in this room to fight for our honor and to fight for you, God. Thank you for your love. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.